She fell to the cold stone floor, her knees scraping, her hands trembling. The room smelled of smoke and iron. Whispers surrounded her, sharp as claws. "You're useless," one voice hissed. "Nothing but a burden," another added. Her cheeks burned. Not from the cold, but from every pair of eyes watching her fail. Every heartbeat pounded humiliation. Every breath tasted shame. She tried to stand. They pushed her back down. Laughter ripped through the chamber, hollow and cruel. She tasted blood. From her lip, from her pride, from every hope she had ever held. And then he appeared. Silent. Immovable. The Alpha King. Not a word. Not yet. But the air shifted. Temperature dropped. Even the strongest wolves faltered under his gaze. Yet he did not reach for her. Did not comfort her. Did not even acknowledge the injustice. Why did he watch? Why did he allow this? Her lungs screamed for air. Her heart screamed for him to intervene. But he stayed still. Cold. Calculated. Distant. The pack continued. The humiliation continued. And she understood she was alone. Completely, utterly alone. Until a sharp growl cut through the room. Heads turned. The Alpha King stepped forward. Eyes locked on the one who had pushed her down. A single word left his mouth. Enough! It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was a command. Absolute. Unquestionable. Pack froze. Even her tormentors held their breaths. She wanted to thank him. Wanted to collapse into relief. But she couldn't. She didn't know why she was trembling more at fear than at gratitude. He stepped closer to her. Still silent. Still unyielding. And in that silence, she realized something terrifying. He was deciding. Not whether to save her. But whether she was worthy of being chosen. Her knees buckled. She closed her eyes. And for the first time in her life, she felt small, vulnerable, and utterly, terrifyingly exposed. The room held its breath. Even the walls seemed to lean in. Then, the Alpha King moved past her, ignored her entirely, and walked straight to the one who had dared humiliate her. She swallowed bile. Her heart shattered into silent pieces. She had been traded away, discarded, forgotten. All because she was deemed unworthy. All because she carried a truth she couldn't change. Yet his eyes, they lingered. Not on her humiliation. Not on her weakness. On something deeper. Something no one else could see. And just like that, a spark ignited. Spark of fear. Spark of hope. But she did not yet know which would consume her first. The room emptied. Her tormentors slunk away, faces pale, leaving her alone in the cold. The stones beneath her knees seemed to mock her. The silence pressed down like a shroud. No one spoke. No one offered a hand. No one cared. She tried to rise again. Pain shot through her wrists. Her fingers trembled. Her legs quivered. She was nothing. An omega discarded. A failure labeled, traded, unwanted. The corridor beyond the hall stretched endlessly. Dark. Echoing. Me. She walked, each step heavier than the last, until she found herself in a shadowed chamber. The only sound, her ragged breathing, the distant drip of water. And then she saw it. The Alpha King's throne. Me. Silent. But commanding. Power radiated from it as though the walls themselves bowed in respect. Her chest tightened. She could feel it in her bones. He was here. Watching. Always watching. Even when absent. The whispers had stopped outside, but they lingered in her mind. No mate. No purpose. No future. Every word echoed like a verdict. She slid to the floor, hiding in the shadows. She dared not look up. She dared not hope. She dared not imagine his eyes on her. Time passed, or maybe it didn't. She couldn't tell. The world had shrunk to the hollow space of the chamber and the pounding of her heart. Then a presence filled the room. Not loud. Not announced. Just there. He was behind her. Silent. Powerful. Cold. Every fiber of her being screamed to run, but her body refused. "You're here," he said. Not a question. Not a threat. A statement. She flinched. The sound of his voice was like ice and fire at once. It burned, but it healed. Terrified, but it comforted. "Why are you here?" she whispered, barely audible. He did not answer. Instead, he stepped back. And the distance between them became a lesson. She understood without words. She had no place in his world. Not yet. Not until she proved herself worthy. Days passed. Or maybe weeks. Time had no meaning here. She was fed, barely, and left to wander the halls in silence. The pack avoided her. Even the lowest-ranking Omegas kept their distance. She was marked, labeled, untouchable. And yet, he watched, always. She caught glimpses of him. A shadow in the corridor, the gleam of his eyes in the darkness, the soft echo of footsteps that stopped when she froze. He never spoke. He never touched. But he was there. And that was enough to make her feel both safe and exposed. Vulnerable. Prey and a prize. She had no allies. No friends. No comfort. And yet, she began to notice a pattern. When danger came, small, almost imperceptible, he intervened silently. A guard who lingered too close. A slip on the staircase. He was already there, catching her without a word. A predator in the woods. Never seen again. Always unseen. Always silent. Always watching. Her humiliation had ended. But her isolation had only deepened. And the contrast was sharp. The Alpha King, untouchable and commanding. And she, discarded, fragile, invisible. The thought made her chest ache. And yet, for the first time, she wondered, was being discarded all she was meant to be? Or was she waiting for him to choose? She did not know. She only knew she was utterly, irrevocably alone. But in that emptiness, something stirred. Quiet, fragile hope. A hope that perhaps he saw her. Not as the pack saw her. Not as the world saw her. But as she truly was. She stumbled through the forest before dawn, feet tangled in roots, arms scratched by thorned branches. Her breaths came in ragged gasps. Her mind raced with every warning she had ever ignored. Something was following. She could feel it. The hairs on her neck lifted. Predator. Not the pack. Something older. Sharper. Hungrier. She froze. Heart hammering. A shadow lunged. A growl split the air. Low. Terrifying. Controlled. The predator yelped, retreating, then disappeared into the mist. She collapsed to the ground, chest heaving. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Fear had never felt so heavy, so absolute. Then, the softest step behind her. The presence she had felt for weeks. Unseen, unannounced. He was there. "Move," he said. Command gentle but absolute. She didn't need to ask who spoke. He had saved her. Again. Without fanfare. Without recognition. She dared to look up. The Alpha King's eyes held hers. Imposing. Unyielding. He did not smile. He did not offer comfort. And yet, the weight of his protection pressed down on her. "You're reckless," he said. Not angry. Not admonishing. Just stating a truth. She wanted to argue. To explain. But words failed. Her chest tightened with the ache of gratitude she could not voice. 4 days he followed silently. When she faltered, he was there. When danger lingered, he removed it before she knew it existed. She began to notice the small things. A hand brushing against hers. Not touching, just close enough to anchor her. A shadow moving just beyond her sight to block harm. A silent presence that told her, "You are not alone." It frightened her. The Alpha King was untouchable, cold, unyielding. And yet, here he was, tethering himself to her without acknowledgement. She began to change. Slowly, tentatively. Her steps became surer. Her head lifted higher. She dared to meet his eyes, just for a heartbeat. He noticed, not with words but with action. A tilt of his head. A slight pause in his patrol to wait for her. A subtle nod that said, "I see you." She had never known this kind of safety. Never known that someone so powerful could care, even without claiming her. It was intoxicating, dangerous, confusing. One evening, as mist curled around the trees and the moon carved silver patterns through the leaves, she tripped over a hidden root. Before she could hit the ground, strong hands steadied her. Not grasping, not claiming. Just holding, supporting. Her breath caught. Her heart thudded against her ribs. He held her, and yet he did not. He existed there like a shield, like a promise she could not yet touch. "You survive," he said. A statement. Not praise. Not expectation. But it sank into her like sunlight. And in that moment she realized. For the first time since being discarded, she felt valued. Not by the pack. Not by her family. Not by the world. But by him. And that realization was terrifying. Because she did not know what it meant. Did he protect her because she was weak? Because she was chosen? Or because he wanted to? She could not answer. But she could feel it. A bond forming. Quiet. Fragile. Unim. And in that bond, a seed of hope took root. A hope that perhaps she was not completely lost. Not completely alone. Not completely unworthy. She had begun to believe she was safe. Believed that the Alpha King's silent protection meant she mattered. Believed that maybe, just maybe, she had a place in this brutal, unyielding world. Then it all shattered. It started with a whisper. A fellow Omega, someone she had thought neutral, cornered her in the training yard. "Do you think he really cares about you?" The Omega sneered, eyes cold. "They all know you're worthless. Even he." Her heart lurched. Her stomach twisted. Dread coiled in her chest like a living thing. I don't know what you mean," she stammered, voice small. The Omega leaned closer, eyes glinting with cruel delight. "You were traded away once. They all saw it. And yet you strut around like you belong. He doesn't, he'll never choose you." She felt the words pierce her like blades. Every memory of humiliation, every rejection, every whisper of worthlessness returned in a wave of heat and shame. And then she saw it. A fleeting glance across the yard. The Alpha King standing at the edge, observing. Not stepping in. Not correcting. Not acknowledging her torment. Her chest tightened. Her legs faltered. Her hope crumbled. He had abandoned her. Or so it seemed. The Omega laughed, sensing her despair. "You're nothing. And he's not yours. Never yours." He fled. Through the cold corridors, through the echoing halls, through the shadows of a world that had already rejected her. Tears streamed freely. Shame burned hotter than the fire in the hearth. She reached the chamber he had allowed her to rest in. The door closed behind her. Her back sank against the wall. The sobs came uncontrollable. And then the door opened. He stepped in. Silent. Immovable. She flinched, expecting condemnation. Or dismissal. Or nothing. He stopped a few feet away, watching. Unblinking. The air between them charged. "You believe them," he said, voice low, controlled. Not angry. Not mocking. Just truth. I. She began, but words failed. How could she explain the betrayal that felt worse coming from him? He took a single step closer. Still silent. Still powerful. And yet, in his presence, the sharp edge of despair dulled slightly. "You were traded once," he continued. "By people who were weak. By people who didn't see your worth. That doesn't define you." She looked at him, disbelief clouding her tears. "Then why?" Her voice broke. "Why didn't you stop them?" His eyes softened. Not entirely, but enough to make her ache. "Because," he said slowly, deliberately, "I needed you to see who you are. Not who they say you are. Not what the world labels you. Only then will you understand. And only then will you survive." Survive. The word echoed in her chest. It was not comfort. It was not validation. It was a challenge. And she realized with a jolt of fear and awe. He was molding her, shaping her, testing her resilience. She wanted to argue, cry, to run. Instead she nodded. 'Cause she understood. Even if she hated the lesson. Outside, the pack whispered. The shadow of betrayal lingered. But inside, a fragile bond had deepened, silent, unspoken, unbreakable in its own way. And in that silence she swore to herself, no one would humiliate her again. No one would discard her again. Not without consequences. Not without him noticing. The storm hit at dusk. Rain lashed the trees, wind howled through the forest, and the pack scrambled in panic. She was alone again, searching for a way back to safety, her clothes soaked, shoes slipping in the mud. Then a howl split the night. A predator, larger and more vicious than any she had ever faced, emerged from the shadows. Its eyes glowed like coals, teeth bared, and it advanced without hesitation. She froze. Her breath caught in her throat. No strength left in her limbs. And then a barrier of shadow and steel appeared. The Alpha King. Eyes burning, teeth flashing, body tense. He stepped between her and the predator. Back, he commanded. The word alone carried the weight of a mountain. The predator recoiled, snarling, but dared not advance. He didn't hesitate. He lunged. Protected. Every strike precise, every movement deliberate. A storm of teeth, claws, and power. She watched, frozen, as he risked himself to keep her safe. For her. The predator retreated, wounded and humiliated. He stood over her, breathing heavy, drenched in rain, fierce as a god. And then he did something unexpected. He reached out, steadying her with a hand on her shoulder. Not harsh, not demanding, but firm. You should not have been here alone, he said, voice low, dangerous. Do you understand? She nodded, unable to speak, unable to stop trembling, unable to stop feeling protected. The pack had watched from the edge of the trees. Whispers rippled through them. The predator they had feared had been defeated. By him. For her. Her humiliation, her fear, her isolation, all began to shift. For the first time she felt the balance of power tilting. She was no longer just a discarded Omega. She was seen, guarded, important. In the days that followed she noticed more changes. Her steps were steadier. Her voice carried a trace of confidence. Even the pack treated her differently. Respect, edged with fear, began to replace mockery. But it wasn't only the pack that changed. She herself changed. She learned the boundaries of her strength. She learned patience. She learned to survive without collapsing into despair at every slight. And all the while he was there, watching, guiding, protecting, never touching without reason, never praising without merit. She began to understand what he had taught her without words. Power was not in claiming. Power was in restraint. Power was in choice. And he had chosen to protect her. That realization ignited something in her chest. Spark of courage. A sense of belonging she had never known. But it came with fear. Because she also understood something deeper. He could take it all away. With a word. A glance. A decision. She was safe, but only if she proved worthy. Only if she survived. Only if she endured. And she would. She would endure. Because for the first time she had a reason. And he had shown her that the world could shift. That the balance of power was not fixed. That even discarded Omegas could claim space in a pack ruled by an Alpha King. The rain had stopped. The forest was quiet. And for the first time she looked up at him without fear. Not entirely. Not yet. But enough to know the world had changed. And so had she. The sun rose over the pack grounds, gilding the clearing in gold. The pack gathered, murmuring among themselves. Whispers of the past lingered. Mockery, judgment, rejection. But today was different. She stepped into the open, heart hammering. The Alpha King stood at the center, immovable, commanding. Eyes like steel, aura like fire. For the first time, all eyes were not on her shame. They were on him. He turned, gaze locking on her. No words spoken yet, but the silence carried weight. A weight the pack felt in their bones. Then he spoke. His voice rolled over the clearing like thunder. Enough, he said. Everyone here knows who has endured, who has survived, who has proven herself. The pack held its breath. She is mine. The words cut through the murmurs, through disbelief, through years of dismissal. Shock rippled across the pack. Some lowered their heads in shame. Others froze, unwilling to challenge him. She felt her knees weaken, but she did not fall. His gaze anchored her. Not with possession, but with acknowledgement. With recognition. With belonging. From this day, he continued, voice like steel tempered with warmth, no one will harm her. No one will mock her. No one will forget her worth. She stands as equal among us. She stands as mine. The clearing was silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. She stepped closer. Fear and disbelief clashed with relief and pride. Tears blurred her vision. The humiliation, the rejection, the isolation, all of it had led to this moment. He extended a hand. Not demanding. Not commanding. But offering. She took it. A single touch that carried the weight of protection, respect, and quiet love. Her fingers brushed his, and the world shifted. The pack bowed subtly. A new order had been established. The Alpha King had chosen. And she had been chosen not for weakness, not for pity, but for integrity, for endurance, for the strength she had built in the silence and shadows. For the first time in her life she felt safe. Truly safe. The murmur of the pack faded. All that remained was the quiet certainty of belonging. He leaned slightly closer, just enough for her to feel the warmth radiating from him. You are yours, she whispered to herself, though the words were for him, for her, for the life she had survived to claim. He did not reply. He didn't need to. His presence said it all. And in that moment, the woman who had been traded, humiliated, discarded, and tested, stood unbroken, visible, acknowledged. The forest around them held its breath. The sun broke fully over the horizon. The world had shifted, and she had survived. No longer an omega forgotten. No longer a shadow. She belonged. To the pack. To him. And most importantly, to herself. Her chest rose and fell with calm certainty. Her heart, once fragile and trembling, beat strong. The Alpha King's eyes met hers, and for the first time, she did not feel small. She felt whole. And the pack saw it. The world saw it. And she finally saw it herself. The woman who had been traded had won. The sun had barely risen, and the pack grounds were alive with activity. Wolves moved like shadows, alert, cautious, aware of the subtle shift in power. She walked among them, head high, chest open, but every step reminded her of the journey that had brought her here. The Alpha King's eyes followed her constantly, not because she demanded attention, but because he had chosen to watch, to guard, to claim, not with force but with vigilance. It was quiet this morning, too quiet, and she knew the calm never lasted long in the pack. A sudden rustle in the tree-line froze her. Her breath caught. Something approached. Not the wind, not the pack. A rival alpha from a neighboring territory emerged. Tall, broad, snarling eyes burning with challenge. The pack stiffened. They knew the rules. Challenges were not taken lightly. She instinctively stepped back, heart pounding, feet heavy with fear. The Alpha King moved forward, his presence solid as stone. Not a single guard moved before him. He alone was the wall. His growl rolled across the clearing, low, terrifying, controlled. You will leave, he said. Not a request, not a threat. Decree. The rival sneered, showing teeth, testing boundaries. You're Omega, he spat. Why do you waste strength on a discarded female? Every insult burned her. Every word of humiliation cut deeper than any claw. And yet, she did not flinch. The Alpha King's eyes met hers. A silent warning. Not fear. Confidence. Control. I am not discarded, she whispered to herself, barely audible. The words gave her courage. The rival lunged. Alpha King moved like lightning. Fierce, controlled, dominant. Within moments, the rival was subdued, humiliated, and retreating. She had watched the fight with pounding heart. Not for fear of losing him, not for jealousy, but for the first time she understood the weight of being chosen. Being chosen meant danger, responsibility, trust. He turned to her afterward, eyes soft but still powerful. "You survived," he said. Not proud, not indulgent, just a statement. She began. Words faltered. Her voice trembled. "I will not be weak." He did not respond with words. He did not need to. A single nod, a slight shift in stance, and she understood. He believed her. The pack had seen it all. The whispers of doubt, the sneers, the challenges, they had ended. Respect flowed through them now, edged with awe. She realized then that she was no longer merely surviving. She was growing, learning, claiming her place. And the Alpha King had always been there, watching, guiding, protecting without taking away her strength, without overshadowing her. She lifted her head higher, walked taller. And in that simple act she felt it. She had power now. Not the raw dominance of an alpha, but the quiet, unshakable strength of someone who had endured. The day stretched on. And though the threat of the outside world remained, she no longer felt small, no longer felt discarded, no longer alone, because she had been chosen. And now she was ready. Night fell over the pack grounds, soft and quiet, except for the distant calls of wolves. She sat alone on the edge of the forest, knees drawn to her chest, eyes tracing the silver shimmer of moonlight on the leaves. He appeared without a sound, always silent, unannounced. She no longer flinched. Not entirely. Her heartbeat still quickened, but now with something else. Anticipation. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said. A statement, not an order. Controlled. She glanced at him, studying his face in the soft moonlight. Strong, imposing, cold, and yet comforting in a way she hadn't understood before. "I can handle myself," she whispered, more to herself than him. He tilted his head, considering her. "You've grown stronger," he observed. Not praise, not mockery, just acknowledgement. The words settled in her chest, heavy, warm, unfamiliar. She swallowed, unsure of how to respond. Her journey had taught her caution. Trust was not given lightly, not even to him. He stepped closer, just enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him, but not enough to crowd her. "I've been watching," he continued, voice low, deliberate. "Not just your survival, your choices, your strength, your integrity." Her breath caught. No one had ever seen her like this. No one had ever recognized the part of her that was more than discarded. I don't know what to say," she admitted. He didn't demand words. He didn't offer them either. He simply stood there, presence heavy and grounding, letting her feel the weight of being acknowledged. A silence stretched between them. Not uncomfortable, not tense. It was charged, full of possibility, unspoken and potent. "I am yours," she whispered, but not as a surrender, not as a plea, as a statement of fact, finally claiming a truth she had been afraid to admit. He did not reply. He didn't need to. His eyes softened just slightly, a flicker that she caught, and it made her chest ache. The forest around them faded into insignificance. The pack's whispers, the judgment, the rejection, all of it became irrelevant. In this moment there was only them. He took a step closer, the faintest of gestures, not claiming, not taking. Simply offering the closeness he had always hinted at through his silent protection. Her hand brushed against his. Accidental, tentative. He didn't pull away. He didn't move closer either. He simply let it be. A simple touch, a quiet acknowledgement. Her heart thundered. She felt it, connection, trust, safety, possibility. For the first time she understood what he had always meant. Being chosen was not about dominance. It was about recognition. It was about seeing. About surviving together. The night deepened, shadows stretching long. And yet she felt light. For the first time in her life she felt whole. She looked up at him, daring to meet his gaze. And in that silent exchange, the bond deepened. Not yet love, not yet words, but something far stronger: understanding, safety, belonging. And she knew, without question, that the Alpha King had always been watching. Not to control, not to dominate, but to see her, truly see her. And she finally saw herself. The dawn was pale, streaking the sky with faint gold. The pack stirred, restless, whispers carried on the wind. She moved carefully among them, steps measured, eyes alert. He was watching as always. From the shadows. From a distance. A presence she had come to rely on, even when she pretended not to notice. But today he did not intervene. Not yet. A messenger arrived, panting, breath ragged. "Enemies approach," he announced. "From the east. They seek to challenge the pack." The words struck her chest like ice. Her heart hammered. The pack tensed, uncertainty rippling through the ranks. He emerged from the shadows, eyes like flint. Controlled. Unyielding. "Prepare yourselves," he commanded. Not a question. Not a suggestion. Law. She felt fear twist in her stomach. But she also felt something else. The quiet reassurance that he would be there. Always. The rival pack arrived by midday. Larger than expected. Menacing. Eyes alight with challenge and hunger. The Alpha King did not hesitate. He moved among his pack like a storm, orchestrating, directing, protecting. Every move precise. Every command measured. And then he looked at her. Not as a burden. Not as a distraction. But as an equal in survival. "Stay close," he said. Simple command. Short. Clear. Protective. She nodded. Heart pounding, hands trembling. But she did not cower. Because she had learned. Because she had endured. Because she had been chosen. The battle began. Wolves lunged, growls ripped the air. She moved, dodged, survived. Not with strength alone. But with cunning, wit, and the silent guidance she had absorbed from him. He was always near. A shadow, a barrier, a wall she could rely on. And yet, he allowed her space to prove herself. Her chest heaved. Her muscles burned. But each time she faltered, he was there. Not to take over but to support. Hours passed. The rival pack faltered. One by one they retreated, broken, defeated. The clearing fell silent. The wind whispered through the trees. And the pack gathered, exhausted but triumphant. He turned to her. Eyes soft, almost unreadable. "You survived," he said. Not a statement of pity. Not of surprise. Of acknowledgement. She felt relief. Pride. Fear. Hope. All at once. "You have earned your place," he continued. "And the pack sees it now. Not as an omega. Not as a discarded female. But as one who endures, who survives, who belongs." Her throat tightened. Tears stung her eyes. The humiliation, the rejection, the despair, they had all led to this moment. He stepped closer. A hand brushed hers. Not claiming, not demanding, but offering. A gesture of trust. And in that simple contact she felt it. Safety. Recognition. Belonging. The Alpha King's gaze softened slightly. "You are yours," she whispered to herself. Not as surrender. Not as weakness. But as a truth finally claimed. For the first time she understood what being chosen truly meant. It was not dominance. It was acknowledgement. It was protection. It was love, not yet named but deeply felt. Pack watched. Silent. Respectful. And she knew finally she had a place. Not because she was perfect. Not because she was strong. But because she had endured. Because she had survived. Because she had been seen. And he had always seen her. The pack gathered in the grand clearing. The forest alive with anticipation. Whispers ran like fire through the ranks. Eyes flicked toward her. Curious, cautious, uncertain. She stood tall, chest lifted, shoulders squared. No fear. No shame. Only the quiet strength she had forged through humiliation, isolation, and survival. He stepped forward, the Alpha King, towering and unyielding. All eyes turned to him, the air charged with his presence. He did not speak immediately. He simply regarded her. And in that gaze the pack saw the truth. She was chosen. Then he spoke, voice deep, commanding, impossible to ignore. Today the pack sees what I have always known. She is not discarded. She is not weak. She is not invisible. She belongs. Shock rippled through the pack. Some bowed heads in respect. Others dared not meet his gaze. He extended a hand toward her. Not a claim. Not an order. An invitation. She stepped forward, heart pounding, hands trembling, but with confidence born of endurance. She placed her hand in his. A single contact, heavy with meaning. Silent. Powerful. Absolute. From this day forward, he continued, voice steady, unwavering, any who doubt her worth shall answer to me. She stands with me. She stands as equal among us. She is my mate. Gasps rose. The pack whispered. Even the oldest, most skeptical wolves lowered their eyes. She felt tears sting, not from fear or shame, but from relief, from recognition, from the safety and belonging she had fought for. He looked at her again, eyes softened slightly. Not indulgent, not sentimental, but steady, grounding, protective. You endured, he said simply. Through humiliation, through isolation, through trials you should never have faced. And yet you stand here, strong, unbroken, keen. She met his gaze, the weight of his words sinking into her bones. I never wanted pity, she whispered. But I wanted to survive. He nodded. A single, slight motion that conveyed more than words ever could. You survived, he repeated. And you have earned not just survival but belonging, recognition, safety, place beside me. The pack remained silent, the clearing still. And she felt it. The culmination of her journey, the reclaiming of her dignity, the power she had always carried but never dared to show. For the first time, she understood fully what being chosen meant. It was not about weakness or need. It was about integrity, endurance, and the quiet courage to survive in a world determined to break her. He leaned just slightly closer, enough that she felt warmth radiate from him. Not overwhelming, not demanding, but grounding, anchoring. She squeezed his hand, a small gesture of trust, gratitude, and acknowledgement. Not surrender, but partnership. The sun broke fully over the horizon, gold spilling across the clearing. The pack felt it. A shift. The undeniable truth that she was no longer discarded, no longer an outsider. She belonged. To the pack. To him. To herself. And in that belonging, in that recognition, in that quiet, grounding touch, she finally felt whole. The Alpha King's eyes softened. Just enough for her to see the depth of his regard. Silent, strong, protective. And it was enough. The pack lowered their heads, murmurs of respect and acknowledgement rippling through them. The woman who had been traded away, humiliated and tested, had claimed her place. She stood tall, no longer fragile, no longer invisible, no longer discarded, because she had been chosen. And being chosen had made all the difference. The forest was quiet in the hours before dawn. Mist clung to the ground, curling around roots and rocks like silver smoke. She moved through it alone, yet no longer with fear. Instead, with purpose. The events of the day still reverberated in her chest. The pack had seen her strength. The Alpha King had publicly claimed her. And yet, she felt a new uncertainty stirring inside. What did it mean to truly belong? To be chosen, to be protected, not just by him but by the pack itself. She stopped beside a stream, watching the water flow over stones. It reflected her face, pale in the moonlight, streaked with tears and sweat. She barely recognized herself. The Alpha King appeared without a sound, as always. His presence filled the space beside her, steady and grounding. You think too much, he said, voice low. Not a rebuke, not harsh, just a simple observation. She faltered, searching for words. I never thought this. This life was possible. After everything. He did not interrupt. He let her speak, let her voice tremble, let her acknowledge her own survival. You have endured more than anyone should, he said finally. And yet you stand stronger, wiser, more resilient. You are not the Omega the world told you to be. The words wrapped around her like a shield. Heavy, certain. I'm still scared, she admitted. Even now. He glanced at her, eyes softening just slightly, though his presence remained commanding. Fear does not make you weak, he said. Your courage is in enduring it and moving forward anyway. You have done that every day. She wanted to reach for him, to cling to that certainty. But she did not. She merely let herself stand beside him, shoulders touching, feeling the warmth he radiated without demanding it. The mist curled between them, like the remnants of the past fading into the new day. And she realized something terrifying and beautiful at once. She trusted him. Completely. Not blindly. Not out of fear. But because he had proven himself worthy. He stepped slightly closer. Just enough for her to feel the breadth of his presence. Not overwhelming. Not claiming. But protective. Anchoring. For the first time, she felt the delicate balance of power, trust, and care between them. It was unspoken. It was subtle. It was real. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, feeling the weight of survival, of recognition, of belonging. She had endured humiliation, betrayal, isolation, and fear. And now she had choice, strength, safety, and perhaps slowly love. She opened her eyes. He was still there, watching, silent. But she no longer felt small. She no longer felt discarded. He felt whole. And the world, for the first time, seemed wide with possibility. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. She walked through the packed grounds, each step measured, purposeful. The whispers had stopped. The mockery had vanished. Yet she felt the weight of the past pressing lightly at the edges of her mind. He was nearby as always, watching, protecting, guiding, not demanding her attention, not overshadowing her space. Simply there, a steady presence she could rely on. She paused at the edge of the training grounds, watching the younger wolves spar. Strength, speed, determination. It all reminded her of what she had endured and what she had yet to claim. You are observing again, he said softly from behind. She jumped slightly but did not turn immediately. The sound of his voice alone had become a grounding force, even after weeks of fear and tension. I want to understand, she whispered. Everything. Pack. The rules. How you lead. He stepped closer, the distance closing just enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. You have already learned more than most, he said. Observation is good. But experience teaches more than watching ever will. She looked up at him, meeting his gaze. His eyes were steady, controlled, yet in them she caught a flicker of acknowledgement. Not pride. Not indulgence. Respect. Recognition. I've never been chosen before, she admitted. Never protected. Never seen. He remained silent. The weight of the silence carried more than words could. It told her, you are not alone. You are worthy. You belong. Her chest rose and fell with the effort to control her emotions. She wanted to run into him, to collapse against his strength. But she resisted, because belonging did not mean surrender. It meant balance, trust, partnership. He extended a hand slightly toward her. Not demanding, not claiming, merely offering. She hesitated, then placed hers over his. The contact was light, tentative, yet it carried the full force of acknowledgement. For the first time she understood. She had survived for more than herself. She had endured humiliation, rejection, and betrayal to arrive here, standing beside him as an equal. The pack watched from a distance. Respect. Awe. Recognition. The whispers of the past had finally vanished. He let go of her hand, stepping back slightly, maintaining the balance between presence and independence. "You are ready," he said quietly. Not as a command, not as praise. A simple acknowledgement of the strength she had fought so hard to earn. Her lips curved into a small, cautious smile. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel the weight of accomplishment, of survival, of being truly seen. The forest stirred around them, wind rustling the leaves, the distant call of a wolf signaling the beginning of a new day. And in that moment, she felt something she had never known: peace, belonging, and the quiet certainty that she was finally home. She looked up at him, daring to meet his gaze fully, unflinching. And in the silent exchange, they both understood. The journey was far from over. The bond was still growing. The love, unspoken but undeniable. And yet, she no longer feared the future. Because she had been chosen. Because she had endured. Because she belonged, here with him and with herself. The evening sky was painted with shades of amber and violet. The forest quiet except for the soft rustle of leaves. She walked along the edge of the clearing, footsteps light, yet purposeful. The air smelled of damp earth and pine, grounding her in a way that the past never had. He appeared without sound as always. Not looming, not imposing, simply there. A presence she had come to trust implicitly. "You are restless," he said, voice low and steady. I think too much," she admitted. "About the pack. About my place. About everything that's happened." He tilted his head, eyes scanning her face in the soft twilight. "Thinking is not a weakness," he said. "But dwelling on the past can be." She swallowed, nodding. It was true. Her life had been a series of trials, humiliation, and rejection. And yet here she was, standing, breathing, surviving. "You've changed," he said quietly. "Not just in the way others see you, but in the way you see yourself. That matters more than any pack hierarchy." Her chest tightened. For weeks, she had measured herself against the judgment of others, the sneers and whispers that once defined her. Now, she realized the Alpha King's recognition, his protection, his acknowledgement, had reshaped her entirely. She dared a glance at him. Not timid, not pleading, but searching, curious. He met her eyes without hesitation. Steady, certain, powerful. And yet, something in the slight softening of his gaze made her heart stutter. She began, unsure what to say. "I never knew that someone could see me, truly see me, and not just for what I am, but for what I've endured." He said nothing, merely stayed close, letting his presence convey what words could not. The silence between them was charged, not uncomfortable, but alive. A tension that pulled at her chest and stirred something deep within her. "I don't want to be weak anymore," she whispered. "Not for anyone. Not for you. Not for myself." He nodded once. Simple gesture. And yet it carried weight. Approval. Recognition. "You are not weak," he said. "You endure. You survive. And that is strength." Her breath caught. For the first time, she understood that strength was not in domination. Not in brute force. Not in fear. It was in endurance. In integrity. In the quiet courage to face the world again and again. He stepped closer. Just enough that the warmth of his presence enveloped her. Not overwhelming. Not claiming. But anchoring. Certain. Her hand brushed against his, tentatively. He did not pull away. He did not take it further. He simply let her feel the connection, the bond that had grown from silent protection, trials, and survival. And in that moment she realized, she trusted him completely, not because he was powerful, not because he had claimed her, but because he had proven in every silent way that he saw her, that he would protect her, that he would honor her endurance. The twilight deepened, shadows stretching long across the clearing, and she felt it. The slow, steady burn of recognition, trust, and a bond that was growing into something far deeper than either of them had yet named. She looked up at him, unafraid. No pleading, no need, just acknowledgement. understanding, belonging. And in that quiet, unspoken exchange, both knew the trials were over. The humiliation had ended. The Alpha King had chosen. And she had finally claimed her place. The forest was quiet under the late afternoon sun, gold light filtering through the trees. She walked slowly, listening to the soft rustle of leaves, the distant calls of the pack. Each step felt deliberate, grounded. She was no longer the discarded Omega who had trembled at every shadow. She was herself, whole, strong and seen. He appeared beside her without warning, as always, yet she no longer startled. Instead, she lifted her chin, meeting his gaze. Strong, steady, unyielding. And yet, beneath that strength, something warmer flickered. "You have changed," he said quietly. "Not just in the eyes of the pack, but in the way you carry yourself. You no longer fear what others think." She allowed a small, tentative smile. I've survived. That's something." He studied her, eyes narrowing slightly as if measuring the distance between past and present. "You have endured more than most could bear. And yet, you stand here. Stronger. Martyr. Wiser." Her chest tightened. The words were not praise. They were acknowledgement. Validation. Recognition. I still don't know what this means," she whispered. "Being chosen. Being protected. Being yours." He stepped closer, just enough that the warmth from him brushed against her. Not overwhelming, not claiming, but anchoring, grounding, certain. "It means," he said slowly, deliberately, "that you are no longer alone, that your strength, your courage, your endurance, all of it matters. Me. To the pack. To yourself." Her heart thudded, not with fear, not with uncertainty, but with a slow, steady realization that she had been recognized, that she had been valued, that she belonged. He extended a hand, subtle, controlled, not commanding, not demanding, just offering. She placed hers in his, and the contact carried the weight of everything they had endured together. Humiliation, betrayal, danger, survival, trust, bonding. The forest seemed to pause around them, as if acknowledging the shift. The world had not changed, but she had. And he had been there every step of the way, not to claim but to guide. "You have earned this," he said softly. "Every step, every choice, every moment of survival. I will always see you, protect you, honor you." Tears stung her eyes, but they were not tears of fear or shame. They were relief, recognition, belonging. She squeezed his hand. Small gesture, promise, connection. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the forest floor. She felt it then. The culmination of her journey, the reclaiming of her dignity, the acknowledgement she had fought so hard to earn. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel it fully. Love, trust, safety, belonging. The Alpha King's eyes softened, just enough that she could see the depth of his regard. Not indulgence, not dominance, respect, recognition, partnership. She finally exhaled, releasing the tension that had gripped her for so long. And in that quiet, golden moment she knew. She was chosen. She was protected. She was seen. And she belonged. The forest was bathed in the soft glow of early morning. Mist curled between the trees, and the distant calls of the pack echoed like a lullaby. She walked slowly, feeling the earth beneath her feet, the wind brushing against her face. Every step felt lighter, freer, unburdened by the past. She paused at the clearing where the pack had first witnessed her endurance, where she had been publicly recognized, claimed, and protected. Felt different now. Not just a place of trials, not just a place of fear, but a place of belonging. He appeared beside her, silent as always, yet comforting in his presence. She did not flinch. She did not shrink. She simply walked with him, side by side, the quiet rhythm of their steps a testament to everything they had endured together. "You have come far," he said, voice low, controlled, yet carrying an undercurrent of warmth. "I see it. Pack sees it. You'd see it yourself. She looked at him, eyes meeting his. Not timid, not seeking approval, but steady, confident, acknowledged. Yes, she said softly. I see it now. I belong. And I've survived. And I'm ready. He gave a single nod. Not a command. Not a declaration. Just acknowledgement, respect, partnership. The pack began to stir around them, preparing for the day. But she no longer felt the need to hide, to shrink, to prove herself constantly. The whispers of mockery, the sting of humiliation, the isolation, they were behind her. All that remained was strength, belonging, safety, love, slow burning, steady, unspoken, yet undeniable. He extended a hand, subtle, offering. She placed hers in his. Not out of fear, not out of need, but because it was right, because it was mutual, because it was the bond they had built, forged through trials, trust, and endurance. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel fully the significance of being chosen. Not merely protected, not merely acknowledged, but truly seen. The sun rose higher, spilling gold across the forest floor. Shadows retreated. Light filled every corner. And she felt it deep in her chest, peace, safety. The Alpha King's gaze met hers, unwavering, strong, and protective. No words were needed. The connection was absolute. Silent, steady, enduring. She squeezed his hand, a promise and a declaration all at once. Not of submission, not of weakness, but of trust, respect, and a bond that would never break. The forest, the pack, the world itself seemed to acknowledge it. She had survived humiliation, rejection, betrayal, and fear. She had endured every trial. She had claimed her place. And she had been chosen. Finally, she allowed herself to exhale fully, to release the tension she had carried for so long, to feel the warmth of belonging, the safety of being seen, and the quiet, steady pulse of the bond they had built. She was whole. She was strong. She was chosen. And for the first time in her life, she felt truly home. The sun dipped low, casting amber light across the treetops. The pack gathered in the clearing, preparing for the evening rituals. The air was calm, yet charged with anticipation. She moved among them, no longer cautious, no longer shrinking into shadows. Her presence commanded quiet respect. He walked beside her, silent, protective, but giving her space. She could feel the heat of him, steady and grounding, but he did not overwhelm. He simply existed, a constant anchor she had come to trust. The younger wolves sparred nearby, testing their strength, their courage. She watched with a quiet smile, seeing in their efforts reflections of her own journey. Struggles, failures, growth, endurance. You have changed, he said quietly, stepping close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. She glanced at him, eyes meeting his. Not shy, not pleading, just steady acknowledgement. I've learned, she said softly, about survival, about strength, about trust. He studied her, eyes narrowing slightly, thoughtful. You've endured trials no one should face. And yet, you are here, stronger, wiser, entirely your own. Her chest tightened. Every word confirmed the truth she had fought so hard to claim. Not merely surviving, not merely enduring, but thriving. You are ready, he continued, voice low, deliberate, but with warmth. Ready to claim what is yours. To stand among the pack. To stand beside me. She felt a tremor of anticipation, a spark that had nothing to do with fear. It was excitement, recognition, the quiet thrill of belonging. He extended a hand, subtle, controlled. She took it, not as surrender, not as dependence, but as a choice, a connection forged through trials, endurance, and mutual respect. The pack watched in silence, sensing the bond that had grown between them. Not a bond of dominance alone, not of possession, but of trust, recognition, partnership. She finally allowed herself to feel the weight of everything she had endured. The humiliation, the betrayal, the fear. All of it had led to this moment. and she stood unbroken, fully seen, fully acknowledged, fully belonging. The forest seemed to lean in, shadows stretching long, the golden light spilling across the clearing. She exhaled slowly, letting go of the tension she had carried for so long. For the first time she felt truly free. He did not speak, but his presence said everything. Silent, protective, anchoring, certain. And in that quiet, shared understanding, she felt the final piece of her journey fall into place. She was chosen. She was safe. She was seen. And she finally, undeniably belonged. The night had fallen thick and quiet, stars scattered across the sky like silver sparks. She walked the edge of the pack grounds, the soft crunch of leaves underfoot grounding her in the present. For the first time she felt fully aware of herself, her choices, her survival, and the power in simply being seen. He appeared beside her, as always, silent, almost ghost-like, yet undeniably present. Not looming, not demanding. Just there. Anchoring her in a way that made the forest around them feel smaller, safer. "You think too much," he said softly, voice low, controlled. Not harsh. Not critical. Observant. "I can't help it," she admitted. "I've spent so long fearing, hiding, surviving. Well, I don't know how to stop thinking." He studied her quietly, the shadows of the trees casting sharp angles across his face. "You have endured what others would crumble under. And yet, here you are, stronger than you realize." Her chest tightened at the acknowledgement. It wasn't praise. Not indulgence. It was recognition. Validation. Respect. "I'm not used to being recognized," she whispered. "Or trusted. Or chosen." He did not move closer. Not yet. But the quiet weight of his presence said more than words ever could. Not protection alone. Not dominance. Acknowledgement. Seeing her fully. Respecting her strength. "You are chosen," he said finally, deliberate. "And it is not because you are weak or in need. It is because you endure. Because you survive. Because you have earned it every step of the way." Her hands trembled slightly, not with fear, but with a slow burning realization of what it meant to be fully seen. Not just protected. Not just acknowledged. But truly recognized. He stepped slightly closer. Just enough that the heat of his presence brushed against her. Not overwhelming. Not claiming. But grounding. Anchoring. Certain. She allowed herself to take his hand this time. Firmly, deliberately. Not surrender. Not need. Connection. Trust. The stars above flickered, reflected in her eyes, and she felt it. The culmination of humiliation, isolation, danger, and endurance had led to this. To this quiet, potent bond. To the slow, steady burn of trust and recognition. "You belong," he whispered, voice low, almost lost to the night. "To me. To the pack. To yourself." Her chest swelled with relief and quiet pride. All the trials, all the pain, all the rejection, they had led to this moment of clarity, of safety, of belonging. She squeezed his hand in return. Not to claim him. Not to seek him. But to affirm herself. Her survival. Her choice. Her strength. The night deepened, and for the first time in years, she felt a peace she hadn't thought possible. She had endured. She had survived. She had been chosen. And she finally belonged. Dawn broke slowly, painting the forest in soft shades of rose and gold. The pack was stirring, stretching, awakening, each wolf moving with purpose and awareness. She walked among them, no longer tentative, no longer shrinking. Every glance she received carried respect now, not doubt or derision. He appeared beside her as she paused at the edge of the clearing. His presence steady, protective, grounding. "You have earned this," he said quietly. Not a proclamation. Not a command. Just acknowledgement. She looked up at him, searching his eyes. Not for permission. Not for approval. But for connection. For recognition. For the unspoken truth that she had survived, endured, and now belonged. "They see me," she said softly, voice almost lost in the morning breeze. "The pack, they finally see me." He inclined his head, eyes narrowing slightly, approving but not indulgent. Because you allowed them to see the truth, he replied. Not just who you are, but who you became. A breeze swept through the clearing, carrying the scent of pine, damp earth, and the faint, warm presence of him beside her. It anchored her, reminded her of every trial, every humiliation, every danger she had endured, and how she had emerged from it all, unbroken. You are ready, he said, voice low, deliberate, carrying weight she could feel in her chest. Ready to stand beside me, to stand as my mate, to stand as yourself. Her throat tightened. For years she had been traded away, humiliated, discarded. For years she had believed she was powerless. Now all that had changed. She stepped closer to him, feeling the warmth, the steady, unyielding presence that had become her anchor. Not as a plea, not as surrender, but as choice, partnership, trust. He extended his hand, deliberate, controlled. She placed hers within it, firm, resolute. The connection was quiet, subtle, yet immense in meaning. It spoke of survival, of endurance, of recognition, of belonging. The pack watched silently, reverent, aware that the moment marked a new chapter. No whispers of doubt. No sneers of scorn. Only acknowledgement. Respect. Oh, you belong, he whispered, his words soft but unwavering. To the pack. To yourself. To me. Her chest swelled with relief, pride, and something new. Anticipation. Anticipation of the life ahead. The safety. The recognition. The bond. She squeezed his hand once, affirming herself, affirming their bond, affirming the truth that had been so long denied to her. She was chosen. She was safe. She was seen. She belonged. The sun rose fully over the clearing, golden light spilling across the pack grounds. Shadows receded. The forest seemed to breathe along with her. The trials of the past were no longer chains. They were the roots that had made her strong. And beside him, hand in hand, she finally allowed herself to feel the quiet certainty of everything she had fought for. Love, safety, recognition, belonging. The Alpha King's gaze softened, the slightest flicker of warmth crossing his eyes. Not indulgence, not surrender, but recognition, respect, partnership. And she knew at last, without question, she had survived. She had endured. She had been chosen. And now, she truly belonged. The forest was still, bathed in the silver glow of moonlight. She stood at the edge of the clearing, watching the pack settle for the night. There was a quiet order, a rhythm she had never noticed before. Every wolf moving in sync, aware of their place, their role, their bond. She exhaled slowly, letting the tension of the day, and of her past, slide away. No humiliation, no rejection, no fear, only calm, safety, belonging. He appeared beside her as always, silent but unmistakably present. She did not flinch. She did not shrink. She simply lifted her gaze to meet his. You've come far, he said softly, voice low and steady. Farther than anyone could have expected. Farther than you believed possible. She smiled faintly. I never imagined this life, this place, being chosen. He did not speak immediately. He let the words hang in the cool night air, letting their weight settle around them. You have survived everything, he said finally, deliberate, precise. Humiliation, betrayal, danger, and yet you are here, strong, whole, recognized. Her chest tightened at the acknowledgement, not pride, not indulgence, recognition, validation. I belong, she whispered, to the pack, to myself, to you. He inclined his head, eyes softening, but his presence remained commanding. You do, and you always have. You just had to see it for yourself. She let herself exhale fully, a long, deep release she had not known she could manage. All the trials, all the suffering, all the doubt, they had led to this. Not just survival, not just recognition. Peace. He extended a hand, subtle, controlled. She placed hers in his, deliberately, firmly. Not surrender. Not plea. Choice. partnership, trust. The pack slept, silent and watchful, aware of the bond forming between their alpha and his chosen mate. Not a bond of dominance alone, not of possession, but of recognition, respect, enduring trust. She pressed her hand to his, feeling the steady warmth, the quiet protection, the unspoken promise that she would always be seen. And she knew with absolute certainty that she had earned her place, her strength, her survival, her belonging. The forest seemed to breathe with her, the rustle of leaves like a gentle heartbeat. And she allowed herself, for the first time in her life, to feel the fullness of her journey. She had been traded away, humiliated, discarded, but she had endured, she had survived, she had been chosen. And now, standing beside him, hand in hand, she knew, truly knew that she was home. Her gaze lifted to the moon, silver light spilling across the clearing. She felt the weight of the past release entirely, leaving only the quiet certainty of the present. Safety, recognition, belonging, love, slow burning, steady, undeniable. He leaned just slightly toward her, a silent acknowledgement, grounding her without words. She squeezed his hand once more, a small gesture that carried all the meaning she could not yet speak aloud. Trust, respect, connection, a bond forged through every trial, every danger, every moment of survival. And as the forest held its quiet vigil, she finally allowed herself to rest, feel safe, to feel recognized, to feel chosen. For the first time she was whole. For the first time she truly belonged. The sun rose slowly over the forest, spilling golden light across the treetops and glimmering through the leaves. She stood at the edge of the clearing, the warmth of the morning brushing her face. The pack stirred gently, stretching and yawning, their trust in her presence evident in the calm around them. For the first time she felt that peace in her bones, the kind that comes after enduring every storm, after surviving every trial. He appeared beside her, silent as ever, yet his presence filled the space with steady reassurance. She did not flinch. She did not shrink. She simply allowed herself to feel the comfort of being beside him. "You have earned this life," he said, voice low and unwavering. "Every moment, every choice, every step of survival has led here." She looked at him, meeting his gaze fully. No pleading, no uncertainty, just acknowledgement, recognition, belonging. "I never thought I could feel like this," she whispered. "Safe, chosen." He inclined his head, eyes softened ever so slightly. "You are all of those things, and more. You are whole, strong, enduring, and you are mine, in trust, in partnership, in acknowledgement." Her chest rose and fell, a wave of relief and quiet pride flooding her. The humiliation, the rejection, the dangers, they had all shaped her, but they no longer defined her. She was no longer the omega discarded. She was no longer invisible. She was chosen. He extended his hand. Simple gesture. Controlled. Protective. Grounding. She placed hers in it firmly. Not as submission. Not as plea. But as choice. Recognition. Connection. The forest seemed to exhale with her. Birdsong broke the silence, the wind rustled gently, and the pack moved in harmony, their trust in her presence clear. "You belong," he said softly, almost as a vow, almost as a promise. "To the pack. To yourself. To me." She squeezed his hand, letting herself feel it fully. Safety. Respect. Recognition. Endurance. Love, slow and steady, undeniable. All that she had fought for, all that she had endured, had led to this quiet, powerful moment. For the first time, she allowed herself to smile, wide and unrestrained. Because she had survived. Because she had endured. Because she had been chosen. He stepped closer, just enough to brush her shoulder lightly, a subtle acknowledgement that spoke louder than words. And she felt the bond between them settle into something unshakable. Not of possession, not of dominance, but of trust, partnership, respect, love. The sun rose fully, gold spilling across the clearing, bathing the pack, the forest, and her in warmth. She exhaled slowly, releasing every shadow of fear, shame, and doubt. The trials of the past no longer held her. They had shaped her, strengthened her, guided her to this moment. Beside him, hand in hand, she finally felt the quiet certainty of everything she had endured and everything she had earned. She was safe. She was seen. She was chosen. She belonged. And in that truth at last she was home.